My father-in-law is over 60 this year, and he still wants to have another child, but he is unable to do so. I don't know where he heard that breast milk can aphrodisiac, so he wanted to drink my daughter-in-law's milk. This is too jarring. I persuaded him not to believe the rumors without scientific basis, but my father-in-law kept accusing me, "You have so much milk, what's wrong with letting dad drink some? You are too unfilial." My mother-in-law also came to force me, "Why don't you give me some milk? Why can your daughter drink your milk, but your father can't?" I suppressed my anger and told her. He married her husband, but he didn't take it seriously. Dad is not an outsider, what's the point of you ordering milk? Even if it can't aphrodisiac, it's not easy to raise dad. For my sake, just follow him. What a filial piety boy, if you want to go along with it, I won't go along with it anyway. Shortly after I refused, my daughter started having vomiting and diarrhea. After doing some research, I found out that someone had tampered with the breast milk in my refrigerator. Ever since I refused my father-in-law's outrageous request to breastfeed me for sexual aphrodisiacs, he didn't force me anymore, but my mother-in-law made all kinds of noises to me, ignored me when I talked to him, and even took my high salary but didn't cook for me, and no longer helped me take care of the children. Thinking that he was an elder, I endured it. But recently I discovered a strange thing. As soon as my daughter drank the breast milk I had refrigerated in the refrigerator, she would vomit and have diarrhea and cry non-stop. I took her to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor said it was food poisoning. But the problem is, my daughter was fine when she drank before, so how could she suddenly be poisoned? Confused, I tasted the breast milk in the refrigerator and it tasted like powdered milk. Someone has already transferred the package in my mind. Thinking of my parents-in-law's previous behavior of asking for breast milk, it was difficult for me not to suspect that it was them. After all, they were the only ones in the family who drank milk powder for middle-aged and elderly people. I had helped make milk powder before and it had this taste. What's even more disgusting is that the two later switched to protein powder, and the unfinished bag of milk powder had expired for more than 2 months. Okay, you asked me for it, but you started stealing it and even poisoned my daughter. She was only less than 1 year old. I was so angry that my fists were hardened. But breast milk and milk powder taste very similar. Without direct evidence, the thief will definitely not recognize it. So when no one was at home, I installed a surveillance camera in a hidden place near the refrigerator. Sure enough, the whole process of committing the crime was caught on camera, and it was my father-in-law who did it. I originally thought he was just ignorant, but now his hands and feet are not clean. My upbringing has always told me to respect my elders. I suppressed my anger and did not expose him face to face. Instead, I asked my husband to warn his father not to do this kind of thing again. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning around and breaking his face. My husband refused to go and massage me with a playful smile. "Oh, my wife, let me tell you, it will definitely be embarrassing." He probably didn't notice that the milk powder had expired, and he didn't mean to hurt his daughter. I immediately got angry. "I know. Embarrassing? You are still a thief? Can you give your child milk powder that is not expired? My daughter has had diarrhea and vomited and lost several pounds. Can you not see it?" Sure enough, under the sun? It is the mother who loves her children the most. But my husband said, "Of course I love babies, but I just think this is a small thing. If you step back and give dad some milk, the matter will be solved. We are all a family, why make it unpleasant?" I shouted, "Lu Hui!" Pushing him away, "What did you promise before we got married? You put my feelings first in everything. What now?" If I hadn't seen him down to earth and caring to me in every possible way, how could I, the only daughter of a rich family, choose a poor boy like him? Ever since I soft-heartedly agreed to move in with his parents, he has always favored his parents, consciously or unconsciously. My parents are good people and always advised me that life as a family is not easy, so let me be more understanding and tolerant. I can ignore it, I don't care about it, but this time it's about my daughter. If I still endure it, how can I protect her in the future? I threw a pillow at her. "Get out of here in the living room today. If you don't warn your dad, we will divorce tomorrow." Before going to bed, my husband sent me a recording. In the recording, my father-in-law was hesitant at first and refused to admit that he had stolen my breast milk. It was not until my husband said that the surveillance video caught him that he reluctantly admitted it and promised that he would not do it again in the future. After listening with satisfaction, I let my husband in. And early the next morning, as soon as I said that I was the mother-in-law, she pretended to criticize the women in the TV series and sarcastically said to me, "This woman gave birth to a loser daughter and still treated her as a baby. No matter how much milk she has, it will do nothing. I won't be able to continue the relationship in the future." I have said before that my mother-in-law favors sons over daughters and always urges me to have another son. I was not polite. I took out my phone, clicked a video, and replied while eating breakfast, "It's really amazing. I'm already a grandpa, and I still have a baby? What's the use of drinking more breast milk? If it doesn't work, it won't work." My mother-in-law stood up suddenly, pointed at me and retorted, "Why do you say that my husband is not good? My husband is as good as a golden gun even without your milk." My mother-in-law comes from the countryside and has always spoken vulgarly, but this is too offensive. Her mother-in-law was ashamed, and I was ashamed. My husband and father-in-law happened to come back from exercising outside, and they both froze there. The father-in-law's face was terribly dark. I stayed calm and asked them the most realistic question, "Mom and Dad, you are so old and you are still having a baby. Can you guarantee that you will raise the child?" My mother-in-law is 50 this year, and my father-in-law is over 60. One has high blood pressure, and the other has high blood pressure. Heart disease. My mother-in-law has already married away, and she has a large family. If the old couple breaks up one day, my husband and I will have to raise this child? Who? We raise it. She gently reminded, "Mom, have you forgotten the rescue you did in the hospital last year?" She was speechless for a moment, and then added, "Even if we can't raise him, my son can. If you don't bring me here, just treat him as a baby." I left it to my son as soon as this was said. I was dumbfounded. What nonsense are you talking about when a mother gives birth to a child? My father-in-law quickly took my mother-in-law away, and my husband also pulled me back. Room apologized again and again. My mother doesn't keep her mouth shut. You must not be on the same level as her. Don't worry, I don't want to raise a younger brother either. I will advise them to give up the idea of having children. I don't know if this promise is true or not, but I told him that if his parents gave birth to a child, I would never raise it. Although my father-in-law promised not to touch my breast milk again, I was still worried, so I bought a small refrigerator in the bedroom, moved all the breast milk into it, and only stole half of it, and then told me not to give him the key. My parents never expected that within a month, my breast milk would be stolen again. This time the thief was a lot smarter. He only stole half of each bottle and mixed the rest with milk powder into a bottle. I can't even taste it if I don't taste it carefully. There was no surveillance in the bedroom, but the position of the bottle was obviously different from where I had placed it before. No need to guess, either my husband forgot to close the door or the thief secretly assigned a key to our bedroom. Although my daughter is not suffering from diarrhea, who knows the quality of the milk powder from unknown sources? If something bad happens after drinking, I won't even have time to cry. I save face for others, but they are shameless, so don't blame me for breaking up. I immediately rushed to question my father-in-law, but he looked innocent. "How could you have wronged me? Do you just dislike me, an old guy?" After that, he called his son and said pitifully, "Here. There is no place for him, so I want to go back to my hometown with my mother-in-law." My husband was returning home, and he criticized me on the phone, "Xiaoyun, you are just fine. My dad made some small mistakes before, do you need to keep holding on to them? Your milk is not gold, my dad, do you have to steal? You are almost crying when you breathe. Who do you think is neurotic?" Sensing my anger, the tone on the other end of the phone softened a bit. "Okay, Xiaoyun, I'm sorry. I'm really busy now, and Dad is not in good health. Please give in to him and don't be so serious like a child." "Okay. My name is Lao Zhen. My body is not small, but I am secretly sensible." I still wanted to ask my husband one more question because of his logic, but he hung up because he was too busy. Called again, still no answer. At this time, the father-in-law went out for a walk with his hands behind his back. His expression was one of triumph. "If they all bully me, then I will show them who is the master of this family." In order to catch the thief, I secretly went into the bedroom again. The monitoring results showed that I am 1 foot tall and the devil is 10 feet tall, and my father-in-law actually came home early to show off to me. I couldn't slap myself in the face and ask questions, so I went to ask him in the face. The mother-in-law wouldn't admit it, so she had no choice but to let the confinement nanny. I kept an eye on her whereabouts. When my mother-in-law noticed it, she thought that the confinement sister-in-law wanted to seduce her father-in-law and insulted her. I'm shameless, and my confinement sister-in-law wanted to resign from my job, saying that she couldn't do it and went to work. When I asked my parents-in-law, they said they were very nice to the confinement sister-in-law and she wanted to leave on her own. I had no choice but to hire someone again instead of letting them do this, and my parents-in-law stopped. After a few rounds, I gained a slight advantage. My breast milk is still being stolen unless I stay home all day or leave it out of the refrigerator. But I have to work, and my breasts will grow if I don't pump in advance. My daughter doesn't have to eat when I'm not at home. I was so angry that I lost weight and lost a lot of hair. In order to catch the thief, I took a week's sick leave. After pretending to go to work every day, I quietly returned and hid in the closet in the bedroom and waited. Finally on this day, I waited for my father-in-law. He crept in, checked everything with an infrared detector to see if there was surveillance, and then started stealing milk. This old man is too greedy and wishes he could replace all the breast milk in my refrigerator. I photographed the whole process of his crime in the closet. Just as I was about to pick him up and go out to arrest him, my father-in-law's cell phone rang. "Baby, don't worry, I'll be right over." "Don't worry, my daughter-in-law just got up this morning. It must be fresh. Come and make some for my brother." After saying that, the father-in-law pouted and kissed the phone screen. I was instantly disgusted and got goosebumps all over my body. Who was that baby? Didn't my father-in-law steal my breasts to arouse sexual impotence? Why does it sound like giving it away? I temporarily suppressed the urge to expose him and followed him to a park. After entering, I saw him running towards a woman pushing a stroller. She looked to be in her 30s. As soon as he arrived, the father-in-law immediately took out a bottle from the thermal bag and handed it over. The woman took it, tested the temperature, and fed it to the child in the stroller. I hid behind a big tree and observed secretly. I heard the woman complaining to him angrily, "What's going on with you recently? You only send me a child every few days, and you will starve to death." My father-in-law quickly comforted, "Baby, don't be angry, it's really my place. My daughter-in-law has been paying close attention to her breast milk recently, so I have to pick a time when he is not here to do it." The other party rolled her eyes at him and said unappreciatively, "I don't care, I don't have milk, but you insist on breastfeeding and don't let me drink milk powder. You have to take responsibility to the end. This is your son. Father-in-law and this woman, so he stole my milk to feed his illegitimate child? So what's going on when she wants to have a second child with her mother-in-law?" After thinking about it for a moment, I suddenly realized that my father-in-law's request for breast milk to enhance virility and have a child was just an excuse, because it would not only please my spoiled wife and mother-in-law, but also allow him to put pressure on me. This old man is so shameless and shrewd. After that day, I followed and investigated for a while. My father-in-law took a lot of evidence of his cheating, and then dumped it all in front of my husband. "Stealing your daughter-in-law's milk to raise and mistress's children, this is what your father did." He was also extremely shocked, and after a while he said, "Honey, don't tell my mother about this yet, I will find a way to handle it as soon as possible." "How are you going to deal with it?" He thought for a while and said, "A young woman clinging to an old man is just for money. I plan to give the woman a sum of money and let her leave with the child." "So you plan to keep it secret from your mother?" "Although my mother-in-law treats me badly, as a woman, I still feel sorry for her." The husband took it as a matter of course. Dad was just confused for a moment. "He is already so old. We can't let him divorce my mother." "You've already given birth to a baby, and you're still confused?" My husband is also confused by this kind of principled error. I really can't imagine that if he cheats on her in the future, he will also say that he was confused. I refused verbally. Adults should admit their mistakes when they do something wrong. Why should others pay for his mistakes? Hearing this, the husband's face suddenly changed and he said, "I am his son, and I am willing to pay for him." "What's wrong?" "I also have half of your money, and I don't agree. I will tell your mother now to see if your mother is willing. I'd like you to give the mistress a penny." With that, I was about to go out to find my mother-in-law. My husband pulled me back, raised his hand and slapped me across the face. His force was so severe that I was slapped on the ground and blood soaked from the corner of my mouth. After a moment, my husband quickly helped me up and apologized again and again. "I'm sorry, wife, I was wrong. I didn't mean it." The moment he was beaten, I saw his ferocity and distortion. After 5 years of dating and 3 years of marriage, this was the first time he hit me. Sure enough, men are sometimes ghosts, and you don't know until you get married. Let me calm down for a while and then we can talk about father-in-law. "I will come back temporarily," he promised fully, and also swore, "If I hit you again, I will be struck by lightning, and you will die." I only laughed after hearing this. There are only 0 and countless times to marry a baby. I will continue to believe unless my brain is flooded. After my mother-in-law learned that he had beaten me, she was proud and proud. My son is not someone who hits people casually. If he does it, that person deserves to be beaten. She did not return to the team and even took the initiative to share her breast milk with my father-in-law. "Let him ask me for it again if he needs it." My parents-in-law were a little strange at first, but soon they thought that their son had tamed me. and I became even more proud. The two of them took turns treating me like a nanny. When relatives came, he showed off to them, "It doesn't matter if my son is an only child because he has several pre-wives. Even if he gets married, he still has to be punished by his husband. He can't do it without beating him." I smiled obediently and didn't refute a word, but who I don't know, but I am brewing a wonderful show. That day, when my father-in-law came back from outside, I smiled and handed him 2 newly sent bottles of breast milk. "Dad, this is what I was anxious about just now. Do you want me to heat it up for you to drink?" But he handed over a medical report and asked me tremblingly, "Xiao-Yin, is this yours?" I looked at it, quickly grabbed it, and hid it behind my back, pretending to be flustered. He stuttered, "Dad, this is just a preliminary diagnosis. Don't worry. I promise you don't have this disease. This must be a misdiagnosis. I will go for a follow-up consultation in 2 days." My father-in-law took one look at the breast milk I handed over and didn't dare to accept it at all, said, "I suddenly forgot that there is something I haven't bought, and I need to go out for a while." After staggering back a few steps, he ran out of the door quickly. And I just picked up the AIDS diagnosis report that was lying on the ground, put it away with a smile, and put it in my bag. I asked a friend in the hospital to forge it. It was originally placed on the shoe cabinet at the entrance door together with my bag. I pretended to have forgotten to put it there. I have probably guessed where my father-in-law went to find his mistress to test his illegitimate child for AIDS. After all, this disease can be transmitted from mother to child. If you secretly drank my milk for so long, the chance of not getting infected is extremely small. AIDS is different from other diseases in that it has a window period. During this period, some patients have no symptoms. Even if they are tested, they may be falsely negative. If you want the final result, you have to wait more than a week, or 2 or 3 weeks. This period of time is enough for the father-in-law and his mistress to have heartburn. And this is just the beginning of my fun. Shortly after my father-in-law discovered my diagnosis report, my husband ran home from get-off work early. I took out the diagnosis report and gave it to him. Before I could speak, tears fell down. "Husband, what should I do? What should I do?" When he asked about the source of the infection, I came up with the lie I had already made up and said, "I went to Thailand with my friends before, and I was injured and my wound accidentally came into contact with the blood of an AIDS patient. I only realized it not long ago. Husband, what should I do if I am really infected? You won't abandon me, right?" She burst into tears and called her husband over and over again. My husband's face was pale, but he was still pretending to be calm.